Hello everyone, welcome back to Functional Spirituality. Thanks so much for tuning in. I want to share today about really one of the greatest gifts so far that I've received from having baby Jasmine. So before having Jasmine, I didn't realize that there are two kind of significant parenting styles, and that I guess there's a bit of rivalry between them. They're paradigms in and of themselves, their philosophies, their belief systems, so people can be quite attached to them. And I mean, to me, if people are attached to their philosophies, you see sometimes people really attached to their belief systems and they can be very defensive. To me, I always sense a kind of fear in there, that there's something that needs to be defended because there's some kind of uncertainty or doubt, actually. And that doubt is uncomfortable and unconscious, but it's there, creating a sense of fear so that people need to defend them and feel like they've been attacked because there's some kind of doubt there. Like if we feel really confident in what we're doing, we don't need to convince anyone. We feel clear, confident, and we're not stuck in the weeds. We can see objectively that why other people might feel confident in their own or have their own kind of approaches. So yeah, there's these parenting styles. And before giving birth, people would always ask me about my philosophies and my parenting styles and what I thought, and there was so much of this hesitancy and so much of this fragility where people would, say, oh, but you can do whatever you want and you don't have to tell me, and don't listen to what anyone says and that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, why is this topic so sensitive? And I was kind of just a blank canvas and really open to hearing what people's opinions were and what people's philosophies were, because I didn't really know. And then, after having Jasmine, it all kind of got real. I actually had something there that needed to be parented. So parenting approaches and styles, became a little bit more real for me. And over the past few months, it's 6 months now, almost 6 months of Jasmine's life. And I've realized actually there are these two parenting styles. There's these two paradigms. One of them is more like a training paradigm. The other one is more of an attachment paradigm, I guess is how I would call it. So the first one says that you need to train your baby. They're relying on you to train them. If you don't train them, they're not going to fit into the environment. They're going to struggle. They're going to be weak. They're going to not have the flexibility and adaptability and to be able to fit into the culture and the parental structures. I guess the parental, what the parents need and what the family need is a reflection of the culture. So you need to train them to fit into the culture, and then they're going to thrive and they're going to be optimized for the kind of context that they live in and for that environment that they live in. And if you don't train them, you're going to struggle. They're not going to sleep well. They're not going to feed well. So they need to be trained. And then there's this apparently opposite paradigm, this attachment style paradigm that says be aware of training. It's one of their principles, beware of baby trainers. And it's a kind of zero training paradigm where the child's upbringing and parenting style is child-led. So you're not training them to fit into anything. In fact, you're actually making sure that the environment fits with them and trying to control the environment as much as possible so it supports and fits in with what the child is going through. The child is developing at its own rate perfectly, and that the environment actually needs to continuously configure around the child so that however the child is developing in its own unique way will be fully supported by the environment. So that's opposite to the environment is actually static, and make sure that the child is trained to fit into the environment. So yeah, within the first few weeks of Jasmine's life, I actually realized, I felt a pressure that I needed to choose quickly which am I going to use, because Jasmine needed to be parented. So I needed an approach. I needed something consistent. I needed a philosophy. I needed something that made sense to me, and I needed to start to take an approach. And I felt a lot of pressure, and especially because that first paradigm, that training style paradigm, was telling me that I'm already behind. Every day that you're not training them is a day wasted, and you need to be conditioning their nervous system so that they can fit optimally into their environment. So I felt a lot of pressure at the beginning to, first of all, understand and fully understand. And to fully understand something, you have to experience it. So understand and start to practice one of these parenting styles. And in these first few weeks of, having a newborn, I was overwhelmed with this new project. I love projects. I love challenge. And actually this project of child rearing and, parenting Jasmine is just amazing. This episode is going to share why it has been so amazing. And I took that project seriously, and I just felt like I was so behind. I had no idea what I was doing and what I'd gotten myself into. And on top of everything else that I was going through after just coming out of a surgery and, engaging with my partner pretty much for the first time in so many years, where we home together and in this new relationship. And there's just so much going on. I felt really overwhelmed. And, as I look back, I can see it all clearly, but at the time I really felt that neither seemed fundamentally right. I felt lost. I didn't feel supported by either of those paradigms. I felt like they were both quite extreme, and indeed in their extreme cases, they both deteriorate. If you are a fundamentalist and take the fundamental principles of them too seriously or to their extreme and absolutely follow them, they deteriorate and they're no longer good guidance. But if you don't, and you consider the philosophies and you incorporate them into what is organic and functional and relevant and meaningful for you, then both of those philosophies are really good guidance. So, for example, why they're both, inappropriate in their extreme cases. If you take this zero training model, there's flaws in that because it's our responsibility to grow our kids up in a way that they are flexible and adaptable in the different environments that they're going to face. It's our responsibility. Like children and humans grow up in different environments, and it's the responsibility of their parents to educate them about these environments and to train them and to condition their nervous system, is this most extreme way of thinking about it, but that's what education is. It's a conditioning of the nervous system. So we need to train our children. We can't take this zero training approach, and we can't take this only training approach because that will deny the biological preferences of that nervous system so that they can fit into our culture. And we see huge problems with that as well, because every time we deny the biological preferences of a nervous system, that nervous system experiences stress. And we don't want that nervous system only and extremely experiencing stress just so that it can fit into a culture, because that has these huge detrimental effects in our developmental period, which is actually what developmental trauma is. It means that we are experiencing stress in that developmental period, and that could be because of some kind of abuse and, huge things, environmental factors, disasters and things like that. Or it can also just be because we're being trained to fit into a culture too much, and our biological preferences are being denied too much and continuously to a degree that stress is just having a detrimental effect on us. So yeah, both of these parenting styles, in their extreme cases, if they're taken as dogma and they're not adaptable and they're not made to be relevant to the situation, and they're just assumed to be, oh, well, that's true, that makes sense, and I'm going to adopt it 100%, they're going to have detrimental effects because dogma has those implications. So anyways, I was very happy when a good friend of mine, Edwina, told me about a philosophy that considers themselves to be the third way, and it's called aware parenting. Maybe you've heard about this. And even this one I don't subscribe to 100%, but it's great to have just one more set of philosophy, just another input, another set of, because both those parenting styles have so much science behind each of them, why that style is the absolute best, and so much science and studies behind each of them which say that the other style is super bad. So it was great to have another set of science and philosophy to incorporate into my own philosophies, something that goes into my processing machine of my brain and my mind and my system, so that in the moment I can act in a way, I can be flexible and adaptable and treat each situation that's in front of me uniquely, but with this kind of library